less than a year, I was shooting OxyContin, heroin, and then finally meth, because it was cheaper and opiates were no longer enough. My roommate kicked me out, and I took it as an opportunity to disappear completely. This is the part where it gets confusing, where I have to hover over myself in order to tell the story. I can't quite ascend high enough to gain insight into my own behavior, because I'm tethered to the horror of it, and it keeps pulling me back down into an abyss black with regret. The first time I was arrested, I was walking down the street at 3 a.m. A police officer stopped me and, assuming that I was high, searched my backpack. I bonded out. A few minutes later, a friend came out to her car in the morning and found me unconscious in the front seat. She called 911. The paramedics finally woke me up, but a cop was standing by to search me. I was arrested for possession again, then once more a few months later. So, I'm going to these hearings this morning for several charges, all felony charges, that happened 3 years ago and earlier. And I've been out on bond for those charges for almost 3 years, 2.5 years now. I was in jail for a little over 6 months the last time I was there. And my grandma, very reluctantly at first, but eventually bonded me out of jail for those charges. I have a lot of charges, so I'm not certain that they're going to either extend the probation that I'm already on, which would mean that I could, keep going on with my life, or sentence me to an amount of years in the Illinois Department of Corrections. It's very hot this morning already. It's supposed to be a hot day. I've done it so many times, which is frustrating because I feel like it's sort of in limbo, but also I've had all this time to make changes in my life. So in that way, I'm like grateful for the sluggish pace of the court system. I hope it's worked in my favor. I grew up queer and Pentecostal, loving Dolly Parton in the public library, in the housing projects of El Dorado, Illinois, a town with a population under 4,000. At 14, I ran away from home. At 17, I met the mother of my son. I was still a teenager when he was born. I was a high school dropout with a GED. And then I was the first person in my family to go to college. Once during my time as an undergraduate, a doctor had prescribed me hydrocodone for pleurisy of all things. The condition caused a stabbing pain in my right lung each time I took a breath, and I stayed on pain medication for almost a year. I had no understanding of its long-term effects, of how addictive it was or what was waiting for me when I finally stopped taking it. What I knew, above all else, was that when I took painkillers, I felt good, really good. They annihilated the undulating sadness I'd been navigating since childhood. I'd never felt the weight of my own depressions until I had an opportunity to exist without it. That probably went on for about a year, but it was definitely on the trip to Tennessee with my son, because we were there 4 days and I ran out of pills that I experienced severe withdrawals for the very first time. It was so scary. And I stopped taking them, after that. Then I went to grad school and I was seeing a therapist, and I didn't take drugs or even really drink for a decade, probably. The whole time I was in grad school, I was sober. Until I moved back to Southern Illinois The poverty and isolation I returned to, the working class dystopia, the rolling swaths of lonely wilderness, at first felt like the exact kind of strange, off-kilter environment I needed to finish my book. I thought I was standing in just the right spot, calibrating fair measures of empathy and objectivity to describe what I saw. I thought it was important to say what this place looks and feels like, to draw the peculiar experience of living in a deteriorating coal town. It seemed to reveal something crucial about living and dying in America. But like most U.S. communities in the last 50 years, where industry and religion and intellectualism failed, drugs flood in to soak up the empty space. I was suddenly around a lot of people after moving back home who regularly used something. They took opioids, or they were using methamphetamines. Because it was so frequent, it became sort of normalized in a way. And even then I was sober, for a year and a half after I got here. But then I fell at work. When the doctor gave me, painkillers again, opioids, I just started taking them. Even though I knew what had happened before, like I remembered how awful that was, I had already been in a really bad place, just mentally. And I took the pills and I just kept taking the pills. This house here, I stayed in for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months because, all the people living there also used, but they would let me just sleep in the garage because I didn't really have anywhere else to go. I went to this park a lot. There's a bathroom up here where I could go clean myself off or get high or whatever. It's hard for me to drive down any of these streets and not know someone in one of the houses who I used with or know that they used. The last time I went to jail, I stayed long enough to get completely sober, to form rational thoughts again. As the days went by, the very idea of punishment, of using incarceration to exact justice, grew more and more absurd. The majority of the inmates had been there before, had been in prison at least once for similar convictions. How had it served us? The penalty for our drug use and crimes we committed as addicts was extended confinement in close quarters with other addicts. I thought about the terrible mistakes I had made every single day. I obsessed over them. They were what had led me here, to the worst place I've ever been. I published this in the Paris Review in 2019, and I'd probably been sober at that point for 7 months. In a letter from jail to my friend Amy Bailey, I wrote, "I've made a lot of bad decisions and hurt the people I love, but I feel ready to begin the long, difficult road to the hill where there's a path that leads to a cliff that if you climb down many feet, there's a cave that goes for several miles beneath a nearby river that eventually comes out in a neighboring state. Where one is allowed to submit paperwork at a tiny glass window in the side of a tree that is also an office for the Department of Forgiveness." And now here I am. Feels good. Feels really good. I'm trying to feel less ashamed about it. Kind of work that I do every day, it makes me feel like then maybe I'm being helpful a little bit. Hey Georgianne, it's Chris Dennis at Egyptian Health Department. I'm the overdose prevention educator, and we've been trying to set up some Narcan distribution events in your county, and I was just wondering if you could help me with that. We could chat about it for a minute. I've been working here for over a year in overdose prevention. Mainly what that is distributing Narcan and training people to recognize and respond to an overdose from opioids. Because Narcan is a overdose reversal medication. A lot of overprescribing happens in rural communities from small town doctors. And maybe that's not their intention, to addict a community to opioids, but it's certainly the outcome. So we're in Wayne County at their public health department where we're going to have the Narcan distribution event. You want some Narcan?
Yeah.
How many do you want?
2.
Okay. Cool.
However many you're going to give us.
Do you need more than 2? If there's like other people you think could like really use Narcan, we'd be happy to give it to you.
Yeah, go ahead and give us a couple more.
Okay.
Our son has a problem and
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
I mean, I hate that we have to give that to anybody. I hate that they need it. But it feels good to say, like, we have this thing that can be helpful to you, and you can have it for free, and we're not going to ask any questions, and hopefully you'll never need to use it, but it could save someone's life.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you. This works for like prescription opioids too, right?
Any kind of opioid. It's gonna
Fentanyl,
work.
it's good for the fentanyl.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good for fentanyl. I think it's just sort of the beginning of thinking about addiction outside of the like criminal justice system, outside of the judicial system, as like a community problem that we can all work together to help change. Making it a crime, at least in the way that we have in the United States over the past several decades, this war on drugs has made it harder for people to get help, I think.
She said thank you.
Yeah.
So this is awesome. She's been clean for about 2 years off of heroin,
Oh,
so
okay.
that's actually saved her life.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I've been clean for 3 years, so
Well, congratulations.
I've never had to use that though, luckily.
Every person that came to get it wanted to talk about how opioids had been a problem in their life in one way or another. And I think those moments of like connection with people and reminding them that other people care whether they're safe or not is like just a small step towards the possibility of recovery, I think.
So try to lead people there.
It's such a weird thing because it's like we wish that we didn't have to do this kind of work, but it feels good to be like responsive to the problem in this small way that we're able to do. So that feels good, but it is exhausting sometimes. I get tired of talking about it. I get tired of thinking about it. I want to do things that have nothing to do with drugs. Sometimes I feel like it's like a penance I have to pay doing this sort of stuff to make up for the like negative impact that my addiction had on the people around me or my community. I just like want to live a life that is the opposite of that now. So this is just the date for the next hearing, which will be in September now. So I just went in and then my attorney had kind of talked with the prosecutor for a few minutes. She'd sent him a few emails with sort of what's been going on with me the past couple of years, from work, from my boss. just like updates on my like progress. But he hadn't been able to see him because he's been really busy. So they reset it for 90 days from now. I'm willing to wait if it means that he's not going to send me to prison. My book, Here Is What You Do, was published by Soho Press in June of 2019. I recently reread the title story, the one about a young addict jailed on drug charges. I wrote it about myself before it ever happened. At the end of the story, the protagonist is released and finds himself faced with the danger and uncertainty of being a free person.